my channel. My name's Katie, I'm the artist at SB Designs, and I'm so excited for you guys to be on this new YouTube journey with me. I've been doing cups for about 4 years, and I'm so excited to be making all these tutorials now and teaching you guys everything that I've learned to and not to do. So if you want to subscribe, I've got so many things planned. I just made a Facebook group, which will be linked down below. Feel free to join if you want to see what we're up to in there. And let's get into this cup because I think you're really going to love it. So I'm starting off with my 16-ounce Junior from the Steel Magnolia. They're my favorite coffee cups to use, and I'm using a 400 grit sanding block to sand it, and then I'm going to clean it with my alcohol. So once we have it prepped, I'm going to go ahead and start on the base paint of it. And I'm using the iridescent black. I got an entire set of Arteza iridescent paints, and that's what I'm going to be using for all of this. And this is the black one. It has this really pretty blue purple kind of tint to it. I'm going to go ahead and paint it on pretty thin and do about 2 layers for this step. Now that our paint's dry, we can go ahead and start layering on. This is a mixture of 50% black paint that I used as the base coat and 50% either Mod Podge or just regular white glue. So I'm just using my little silicone brush and layering it on to get a decently thick layer on here. So the 3 colors I chose to do the flowers on this are all Arteza. They are in the iridescent paint collection. I will link that down in the description box along with these colors. I used Mystic Lilac, Ocean Blue, and Lively Pink. I started off with my blue paint, and I have this ball bead chain that I ordered off of Amazon. It came in a 32-foot pack of this, and I cut it into 6-inch segments. I will have it linked down below. It was pretty cheap for being 32 feet of it. So I'm gonna kind of dip it into my blue paint and drape it over in kind of a zigzag pattern onto that paint. Whoops, hang on. You'll see, okay. Kind of in like a zigzag where it's going down, and then you're going to pull it very gently. Be very mindful where your tail end is going when you're dragging it down so it's not making a huge mess across your cup. And then I tried to kind of get some of that black paint off of there so that I could put more blue paint on there. And then I just went in again and did the same thing right beside, almost kind of on top of it. This time I put my fingers down at the bottom when I was sliding the beads out, and it did help to get not such a messy bottom. Now I loved how just the blue turned out, but then I decided to go in with all of my colors because I wanted to see how they were all going to kind of look together, and ended up with that, and I absolutely loved it. So that's what I kept on doing for the rest of the cup. I used all the colors at once, and I just placed them and slid them. And once I was finished with that front section, I went ahead and moved on to the next side. And this was a little bit tricky because I had to hold the cup. I couldn't lay it down, obviously, because of all the wet paint, but you're just going to hold it, try not to bump the paint you already painted on anything, and continue the pattern that you did on the front side. I'm going to speed through the rest of this because it took a while, but once you have everything done and you've got all of your flowers where you want them, you're going to need to let this thing dry. And it's going to take quite a bit of time just because we had to put that paint on so thick. Now to dry this, if you are in my Facebook group, you've seen me mention this multiple times. We have a kitchen dehydrator that we use for fruits, vegetables, and I recently learned how amazing it is with drying cups. And just a disclaimer with the dehydrators, don't put food in it again if you choose to ever use your dehydrator. I don't know if it's safe to put food in or not, but just err on the side of caution. And just please do not put food in the dehydrator after you've put chemicals like epoxy in it. So once we know that that is completely dry, I'm going to go in and put epoxy on and glitter the bottom of this. So I'm using KS Resin's Liquidy Split Ultra UV, and this is Luster Dust from Diamonds and Dust in the shade Onyx, and it is my favorite additive to put over top of dark colored tumblers. So I'm going to put just a little bit in it. A little goes a long way with this. And I'm just kind of using my fingers to get my epoxy on here. There's no real method. Put it on however you want to put it on. I do, however, use a bit more epoxy on this than I normally would when I'm putting glitter on a cup. And then make sure you're going in with your heat gun or torch to pop any bubbles and really kind of smooth it out a little bit. Once that's done, I went in with the color Evening Gown from Diamonds and Dust and sprinkled it on the bottom of this. And when I do something like this, I tend to hold my shaker bottle kind of far away so that it disperses like an ombre would without it falling too far down on my cup if I were to tilt it. And I'm always turning my cup too. You see, when I sprinkle my glitter, I'm turning my cup. And when I do it this way, I have a little bit more control of where it's gonna go. So once you have that up as far as you want it, I just did it right above the curve for this one because I wanted a lot of my design to be at the top there. I put this on the turner since it is a thicker coat of epoxy. Normally when I do the glitter method, I can just let them sit on my drying rack. That wasn't the case here because the layer of epoxy we put on it was a little bit thicker. Since I used Fast Set on this, I waited about 2 hours, did another coat of epoxy, and then we were ready to get our decals on there. So I've already gone ahead and cut out my decal for this. This is a hand lettered file from Diamonds and Dust, and I will have it linked down below. I used a holographic vinyl and I made a black offset for it. And I always try to pick the spot on the tumbler that I think might not look the greatest. That way I can kind of hide it with my decal. So I had one spot here that I wasn't in love with, and that's the spot that I chose to put my decal on. Once I had it on there, I realized that several little areas didn't line up perfectly with the offset. And I know since it was a black offset, it's not terribly noticeable, but I'm super OCD about my offsets matching up perfectly. So I went in very gently and carefully and lifted any spots that needed to be fixed, and I went ahead and fixed those. And while I always attempt to fix these, if it is too far gone or too much of it has come up or it's tearing or anything like that, just take it off and redo your decal. If it doesn't look like it was laid down right the first time, take it off and start fresh. So I did go ahead and put another layer of epoxy on top of my decal, and now I'm just going to go ahead and do my rims. You've seen me do this before in one or two other videos. I did make an entire video explaining how I do this, showing you my Dremel and everything that comes with it. I will link that down below so you have it as reference. But I go around the rim with my flapper wheel on my Dremel and get that perfect little edge. And I will also sand down any spots that might need it. I found a few on this one in that bottom edge. Now be careful going around your bottom edge because it's very, very easy to sand through all that epoxy and your glitter. So be very careful and use a finer sandpaper. I think I used a 400 grit sanding block on this one. After I'm done sanding it, I always go ahead and wash it with soap and water and dry it off with a paper towel. And then it's ready for its last coat of epoxy. And once again, I am using the KS Resin Liquidy Split Ultra UV. And that way this is going to be done and I can be handling it in just a few hours opposed to waiting 12 to 15 and hoping that it's completely cured. And I always make sure that I get around the top rim really well to make sure that it's completely sealed up there where I've just sanded. And after I'm done, make sure you go through with your torch because this holographic vinyl is a pain with the micro bubbles. So I always go through with my torch once and I'll wait about 10 minutes and get it again just to make sure all of my bubbles over that decal are gone. And there we have it. She is all done and prettier than I could have ever imagined. I honestly was not sure how this would turn out because I trial and errored this so much. I'm so happy with how it turned out. And that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you loved it as much as I did, and I can't wait to see what you guys are gonna make. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to see more. Thanks, guys.